Hello and welcome to the first video I have actual content in. Had to start somewhere, right? If you're new here, my name is Brian and this channel is for my personal projects, mostly rocket related. In my previous video, up here, I went over a brief overview of the first two projects I plan to complete, as well as some background on myself. If you haven't seen it, check it out. My main goal here is of course to get rich and famous through YouTube, as one does. I'm just kidding, but in all seriousness, I'm hoping that anyone watching these can learn through my failures and maybe start out a little farther along than I did, hopefully avoiding some of my failures in the process. Sharing knowledge is very important to me, and this platform is great to do that, and best of all, it's free to you. In my previous video, I mentioned that my first project was going to be to get my high-power rocketry certifications, and as surprising as this is, at that point in time, I hadn't started any design or analysis work towards that end. I plan to get my high-power rocketry certification from the National Association of Rocketry, using one rocket with 3 different configurations, one per launch. Pictured here is an initial design sketch that I created just to get my bearing on all of the different components I will need for this rocket, as well as how it fits together. Because let's be honest, solids is not my area of expertise. Now that we know what this rocket is going to look like, a tube with a nose cone and some fins, we can put together a list of requirements for the project. Going down this list, I want this rocket to have a 1.25 stability margin coming off the rail for all 3 different configurations. I want this rocket to have the ability to fit both a 54mm motor and a 75mm motor, as I will need both of these during my 3 launches. I want this rocket to have a redundant recovery system as well as redundant initiators for safety and reliability. And I want a GPS tracker in the rocket because I really don't want to lose my baby. And of course, the rocket needs to have a camera port so that it can take pictures and video because Pixar didn't happen, obviously. This rocket also needs to be able to fly safely with an L1, L2, and L3 motor in it, but that should be self-explanatory. Now I understand if you're new to high-power rocketry, or just stumbled upon this channel, you might not understand what the 1.25 calibers of stability margin actually means. I'll link a video in one of these 2 corners explaining that, and maybe in the future I'll go more in depth on the rationale and base knowledge for some of this design stuff. But right now it is 11 p.m. and I said I'd have this video out by dinner time tonight. So we're going to skip that for now. Before I began design on my certification rocket, I reached out to the National Association of Rocketry, asking a simple question. Can I speed run the certification process doing all 3 launches in a single day? My desire was twofold. Obviously for the clout, how many people can say they've done their entire certification process in just a single day? But also to hurry along to other projects, more involved projects, and large liquid projects. Here's what they said. Brian, congratulations on your graduation from San Diego State University. Your letter has been reviewed by various individuals in the National Association of Rocketry, either associated with our high-power certification programs or responsible for NAR policymaking. The NAR considers its high-power certification programs to be essential to safety when designing, building, and flying high-power rockets. We cannot support your plan to expedite the certification process. The NAR board and its certification process stakeholders wish you the best in your future career and your pursuit of rocketry interests. I understood where they were coming from, and I couldn't really be upset by their decision. I completely understand. Even though my dream of reaching a level 3 certification in just a single day was crushed, that didn't mean I couldn't make a single rocket to launch all 3 motors and still get my L3. So that's what I'm doing. It might not seem like it, but the hardest part of this project so far for me is that all of these components can be bought commercially off the shelf. Now, that might confuse some of you, but when we were designing Lady Elizabeth, all of those components, almost every single one, had some design or some change that was forced into it to save weight, to change the shape, to do its role better. All of these components are already created. I didn't have to design anything. I just had to put together more or less a jigsaw puzzle of a rocket and then eventually launch it. And for a while, that was hard to get my head around. Just too simple for me. After browsing through Apogee Components' website, I was able to find all of the body tubes, motor mount tubes, centering rings, bulkheads, and the nose cone that I would need. I was able to find the material for the fins on a different site cheaper, so I went with that. And this CAD is dimensionally and mass accurate. However, the nose cone that I'm using is agave, doesn't matter, and not conical. I should note, however, that the mass that this CAD has calculated is just the body tubes. There's no engine, no recovery, and no counterweight taken into account here. So the CG is just all of the body tubes as well as the couplers. Now that we have an idea of the shape and size of the rocket, it is time for some extremely basic simulations just to see if it can get off the rail safely. On the top, we have Alpha 1.1, the L1 certification rocket with the smallest engine. The middle row, we have Alpha 1.2, the L2 certification rocket with a slightly bigger engine, still 54 millimeters though. The bottom one, Alpha 1.3, is the L3 certification rocket that I plan to launch, with the biggest motor of the three. Now that we have all three configurations modeled with OpenRocket, we can do some simulations on the apogee as well as the off-the-rail speed. Here we can see our Alpha 1.1 configuration launch on an Aerotech I-65W. Apogee is right around 1,450 feet, and the off-the-rail speed is right around 33 feet per second, which is good enough for a pretty calm day. Here's our Alpha 1.2 configuration launch on a Cesaroni K675. Apogee is right around 3750, and our off-the-rail speed is right about 66 feet per second, which is good enough for most days. Here's our Alpha 1.3 configuration launch on an Aerotech M2030G. Apogee is right around 7,250 feet, and the off-the-rail velocity is right around 75 feet per second. So this has a very good stability margin, just like the L2 launch on Alpha 1.2. I'm hoping to get the apogee of Alpha 1.3 down below 5,000 feet for actual launch, using more mass or other techniques, but we will see how that goes. Well, that's it for project updates. If it's not obvious by now, my first project, my high power certification rocket, is going to be called Alpha 1 because it's the same rocket for 3 launches, just in different configurations. So Alpha 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. Should be pretty exciting. I just bought a ton of body tubes and I'm hoping they're getting here by mid-January so I can start building, and we'll see how it goes. Hey everybody, thanks for dropping by. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. All the cool kids are doing it. Don't want to miss out. If you don't, you're kind of a loser. I don't make the rules. But now that 2020 is over, happy almost 2021. Merry Chrysler, and I'll see you later.